youth is hope. I always consider youth is a great hope for the future. If you go to the history of Japan, when the whole country was devastated during the Second World War because of the attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the entire youth of Japan, they stood like a rock and they saw to it that the devastated country becomes one of the most developed nations in the world. Youth has such power. If you see India, by the year 2025, the average age of India is going to be 29. That means India is going to be full of youth. That be so, then to what extent we can exploit the potential of this youth? This is called demographic dividend. I mean, is it just sufficient if you have the numbers, or do you need anything beyond? What I call the numbers are not important. It is the activism that is very, very important. Youth activism always brings new changes, new ideas, and they actually pave the path for a wonderful future. I always say youth need some prerequisite, or the youth activism needs some prerequisites. First is physical well-being. That means youth should be physically fit. The second is emotional well-being. If the youth is emotionally well-being or the youth has good emotional well-being, what I meant by emotional well-being is that they should have the traits of patriotism. They should have the qualities of empathy and sympathy. The third attribute that is required is the intellectual well-being. That means always you should analyze the problems and give solutions. It is not just criticism. Youth should be able to analyze the issue and give solution. This is what I mean as intellectual well-being. The fourth attribute is aesthetic well-being. That means you should be able to appreciate the nature. You should be able to appreciate the countryside. Then your thought process will be different. And the final requisite is relationship well-being. That means you should be able to relate to various people in the community or in the society. Relate with the nation, relate with the nature, relate with the armed forces. So these are the 5 attributes I always think a youth should have. Then you can bring in youth activism. The physical well-being, the emotional well-being, the intellectual well-being, the aesthetic well-being, and finally, the relationship well-being. Once the youth is full of these traits, then the nation is going to be totally different. If the youth is active, the nation is active. Now, India lives in villages. We have 6,12,000 villages in the nation. So, if you want India to be a developed nation, then we need to develop the villages. So, rural development is very important. You may ask me what youth can do for the rural development. First, let us understand what is rural development. Rural development is bringing transformation in the lives of the rural people in terms of social, economic, and political terms. So, there should be a transformation on the social front. There should be a transformation on the economic front, and there should be transformation on the political front. Of course, with the 73rd and 74th amendments to the Constitution of India, we have brought in sufficient political changes in the rural sector. We have the Gram Panchayat system, we have the municipal councils and municipal corporations. Now, the most important things that are remaining are the social and economic empowerment or social and economic transformation. If you see villages, there are a lot of issues. Poverty is one of the issues. And of course, cultivation is only the source of income in the villages. You don't have proper health care. You don't have proper education facilities. There is a lot of litigation in the villages People spend lot of money on the litigation, and lack of cleanliness is another issue. So these are the problems which are plaguing the villages. Now, what youth can do to transform the villages? How youth can make these villages model villages? How youth can make these villages smart villages? Because of late, if you see, most of the people who are educated, they are moving away from the villages. They are coming to the urban side. So there is a lot of pressure on the civic communities in the urban areas. I mean, if you see during the recent rains or there are a lot of floods in the urban areas. Why? Because there is a lot of pressure on the civic communities because of the migration of people from the villages to the urban areas. Can we stop it? If you see, read Mahatma Gandhi, he says, Grama Swarajya is very important. Suppose if the villages are developed, and whatever a village requires, if it can be procured from an area of about, or radius about 2 kilometers, then those villages are going to sustain. Then villages are going to prosper. There is going to be a lot of employment in the villages. So this is Grama Swaraj. Then Dr. Abdul Kalam said, if you want to improve villages, you need to adopt a system called Pura, providing urban amenities in rural areas. Then the migration will stop. Provide the best internet services in the rural areas. Provide the best roads and other infrastructure. Give them continuous electric supply. Then whatever the amenities people are seeing in the urban areas, if these things can be replicated in the rural areas, then this issue of migration we can stop. So these are some of the thoughts of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Mahatma Gandhi ji. So youth need to think in these lines. What we can do for the transformation of the villages. Now, as a student, what you can do? As a student, what you can do for the villages? Join in your NSS activities in the school. Maybe you can join the Nehru Yuva Kendra Sanghatan, wherein you will get lot of exposure to the rural areas. You will come to know what are the problems that are being faced by the villagers. And you can always think of giving solutions. You can always think of transforming the lives of the villagers. Lot of engineering colleges are established in rural areas. Why? It's not because some land is available in those areas. It is basically with an idea that these engineering colleges are going to be the nerve centers for this transformation. If the villagers have any problem, they should come to the engineering colleges rather than going to the government. And these engineering colleges are supposed to provide the solutions to the villagers. That is how transformation can be done. Of course, entrepreneurship is another big thing youth should consider. Why not we have small units established in the villages so that this migration can be stopped? We have the typical concept of called the raw material mentality. Whatever we produce in the villages, we sell it just like that. We are not thinking of value addition, or we are not thinking of the processing. So young entrepreneurs, youngsters, youth have to think in these lines. Whatever is the produce that is available in the villages, because cultivation is the only source of revenue there, why not we increase, or why not we set up a processing unit there, do some value addition and get some revenue for the villages. And lot of doctors who are passing out from the colleges, why don't you think of improving the health conditions of the villages or the villagers? We are only concentrating on the tertiary care of the medical care, but we are not considering the primary care. You may say that it is the responsibility of the government to improve the villages. I mean, my advice to all is that let us not leave everything to the government. Let's also pitch in, like what Japanese did during the Second World War. Similarly, if youth can rope in, or they can step in the development of the villages, lot of changes we can always bring. So the third thing is there are a lot of students, they are going abroad for their studies, and they are settling down there, and they are in very good positions. I mean, on random, if I see, at least 2-3 students from each village are going and settling down abroad. Why not all these people come together? Why don't they adopt their village? So these villages can be adopted, and with the help of the youth who is already there in the villages, and with the expertise of these people, whether we can transform these villages. Maybe in the health sector, maybe in the education sector, or maybe setting up of small scale industries there, or putting up some processing units, or improving the agricultural methods also. Of late, if you see, the productivity of the lands here in our country compared to the other countries, there is a lot of scope for us to improve the productivity. You can go for crop diversification, and we need to have a lot of infrastructure also in the villages for the storage of the grains and also cold storages to see that whenever there is a season, these products can be pushed into the market and you can have a better economy or you can get better revenue. So there are a lot of avenues which are there in the villages. So youth should think in those lines. So in order to develop these qualities or develop this thought process, we need to get engaged. We need to visit the villages. You need to interact with the villagers. You need to interact with the farmers. You need to find out what are the issues. And you need to discuss. And you need to come out with the solutions. If all of us can come together, and if the youth, which I am talking about, India is going to be full of youth by the year 2025. Already there are about 40 to 45% of the population is youth. By the year 25, it is going to be 60 to 75%. So such is the strength of the country. So if the youth, by developing those attributes of this physical well-being and the emotional well-being, intellectual well-being, aesthetic well-being, and so relationship well-being, if these traits can be inculcated in them, especially in the schools and colleges. So the schools and colleges should be the nerve centers wherein these attributes are taught to the children. Then when they grow up, they always think about the villages, because unless the villages develop in the nation, Bharat cannot develop as a nation. So there is a strong requirement, there is a strong thought process, there is a need for the youth actually going to the villages and being there. So if these are the things which you can think of, and if the government also pitches in, and if the government also comes and provides so many things that are required for these villages to improve by engaging the youth. So I am hopeful that in the days to come, the youth of India, with their immense potential and with the demographic dividend which we are talking about, they should be able to sustain and they should be able to go to these villages and they should be able to offer solutions. So entrepreneurship is one of the most important things. So I request all the schools and colleges to come up with a module on entrepreneurship. So it is not job seeking, but it is job giving that should be made as a thought. I mean, that should be the thinking process of the youth. Then automatically the nation is going to improve. So I hope the demographic dividend what we are talking about is really going to help the nation, and the nation is going to go ahead with the strong youth that is going to be there. It is already there, and also in the years to come, the strength is going to add up. So thank you very much. Jai Hind.